Hello friends, you are heartily welcome to ATD Tales, where every story touches your mind and soul, and every lesson gives new direction and new light to your life. Today I am going to talk to you about a very special and deep topic, which is hidden somewhere in every human life. That is our mental peace, that is the inner peace which we all want to get, but which perhaps we miss. Have you ever felt that everything is happening so fast in your life that you are losing yourself? Have you ever thought that the hustle and bustle of the world, ever-increasing anxiety, and restlessness of mind are tiring you from inside? Have you ever felt that your soul is lost somewhere in the darkness and you are not able to find it back? If your answer is yes, then you are not alone. In today's fast-paced world, millions of people are trapped in such mental pressure, anxiety, and stress, which take them away from their real self. But I want to tell you that it is not at all difficult to reach that peace and comfort. In fact, that peace is hidden within you at a depth where you have never reached. The ancient stories of Zen, which have been going on for centuries, teach us that peace is not outside, but within us. These stories will reduce the noise of your mind, soothe your soul, and give you a new direction. Today I will take you on a unique journey where you will be able to find peace and mental peace within yourself through 4 amazing and deep stories of Zen. These stories will teach you how to accept every struggle and every challenge of life peacefully, how to know your true nature by leaving your fear, and how to fill life with new meaning by listening to the voice of your soul. Each story will bring a new philosophy, like a person who said yes in every situation and found peace in life, or the young man who lost his freedom due to fear. These stories will not only give peace to your mind, but will also change your thinking, will show you how peace can be maintained even in the hustle and bustle of life. You will learn what is the power of silence and how it can become the biggest strength of your life. You will know how giving the right direction to your energy can shape your future, and how being patient is the real sadhana, which will make your soul strong. This video is not just a collection of stories, but a guide that will take you out of mental stress and lead you to a happy, balanced, and confident life. You will know how to identify the fear within you, understand it, and let go of it so that your mind becomes light. So are you ready? Are you ready for the journey that will introduce you to your real self? Are you ready to calm the turmoil of your mind and recognize the true peace within you? So join me on the Zen journey, where each story will bring new light to your life, soothe your heart and mind, and give you the mental peace you have been looking for a long time. Watch this video till the end, because each story has a precious message hidden in it, which can change your life. Join ATD Tales and be a part of this beautiful journey, where together we will discover the peace and strength within ourselves. Let's start this journey together and give ourselves the inner peace, which is every human's birthright. First story, the man who said yes. In life, we all want everything to be right with us, everything to be under our control. We want problems to get out of our way, difficulties not to come to us, and every day to be easy, happy, and safe. But the truth is that the path of life is never straight and easy. Everyone faces difficulties, challenges, and sometimes we feel as if we will break down, fall. At such times, our first reaction is to fight it all, avoid it, or oppose it. We start saying no to our pain, to our change, to something unknown. But think, do we ever pay attention to the truth hidden behind this no? Is this no not tying us somewhere? Is this no not blocking the path of our happiness? Now listen to a story that gives us a different perspective, a lesson that can change the way we think. This is the story of a person who gave only one answer at every turn of life, in every situation, in every challenge. And that answer is yes. Yes, a small word of acceptance, but its meaning was very big and deep. It meant, I accept this moment, I embrace this situation instead of fighting it, I am ready to change and learn myself. When he said this yes for the first time, he also felt scared. He also thought, am I looking weak? Am I making myself helpless? But gradually he came to know that saying this yes became the biggest strength within him. Saying yes meant, I accept every aspect of my life, no matter how difficult it is. It meant I embraced my fears, my pains, my happiness, and my failures. This yes gave him a unique peace. That peace changed his thinking, changed his world. As he kept saying yes and obeying, miracles started happening in his life. Relationships that were about to break started getting stronger. Problems that were stuck started getting resolved. The fears that were stopping him started disappearing. Saying yes seems easy, but when life hurts us, this small word becomes very heavy. This is what happened with that man. When he bowed his head in front of difficulties and said yes for the first time, people laughed. Some said, he is a coward. He is running away from the situation. Some said, he is weak. That is why he accepts everything like this. But he remained silent, because he knew that those who are looking at him from outside cannot understand his inner struggle. One day, a big challenge came in his life. He lost his job. The financial crisis filled the walls of the house with tension. The wife was upset, the children were scared, and the relatives' eyes were full of reproach. Anyone would have broken down at such a time. But he repeated the same words in his mind again. Yes. He said, yes, I lost my job. Yes, I am in a weak state right now. Yes, this time is very difficult. But then he added the next sentence. And yes, I will get out of this. Instead of running away from the circumstances, he embraced them. He felt the pain, did not stop the tears, but did not complain either. He told himself every morning, where I am right now is my beginning. I am not denying it. I am accepting it, because this is where my strength will be born. Slowly, something started changing inside him. His habit of saying yes made him not a slave of circumstances, but their master. He now started doing small jobs. Sometimes he used to deliver newspapers at people's houses. Sometimes he used to deliver milk. People taunted him. There was a time when you used to go to office wearing a suit and now see what you are doing. But he kept smiling and kept answering every taunt with a yes. Yes, I do small jobs now. And yes, I will rise again with hard work. Now he would wake up every morning, tie the milk bag with shivering hands in winter, try to save the newspaper from getting wet in the rain, but there was no complaint in his eyes. Rather, there was a different sparkle, because he was no longer running after any destination, but considered every step as a destination. And from here, the story takes a turn. One day he met an old acquaintance who once worked with him in the same office. That man saw him who was now distributing milk in a street with an old bag. The man's heart was first filled with pity, then with surprise. He asked, "What are you doing? So much study, so much hard work. Has it all gone to waste?" He smiled and said in his simple voice, "I am not losing. I am learning. I am not ruined. I am being made again. And whatever I am doing today will take me on a path where you can't even imagine." There was no answer to his statement, because there was that truth in it, which comes only from experience. There was that peace which comes only from acceptance. The next week, on the advice of his old acquaintance, he joined a small project. An NGO hired him in their dairy project, only because they needed a person who can handle responsibility, who does not complain, who just knows how to say yes. There he started to stand up again. Now he started teaching others how life can be changed by saying yes. This was the moment when he realized that he was not only changing his life, but he was also becoming an example in the lives of others. By now, that man had reached a point where yes was not only his answer, but had become his religion, his path, and his nature. Now he was not afraid of any difficulty. Now he did not consider any work to be small. Now he did not take anyone's taunts to heart, because he had come to know that what you believe about yourself is more important than what the world says. One day, a big problem arose in the NGO's dairy project. Big suppliers broke their promise. People got scared. Everyone said, "This business will not work. We will have to stop it." But that man who used to distribute milk packets came forward now. He once again said the same thing that had become his identity. They said to him, "Yes, I will handle it." People were surprised. "What will you be able to do?" He replied, "Maybe not much, but I will definitely try. And that is enough." He went to the nearby villages and talked to the people himself. He explained to the small farmers that their milk is no longer just income, but can become the backbone of someone's life. Gradually, new suppliers were found, local help was added, and the project started again with a new energy from the brink of closure. Yes opened a door again, but this time that door was not of an opportunity, but it was of self-confidence. Now he could see depth in even the smallest things of life. A broken wall taught him that one who falls can stand up again. A withered flower also told him that beauty lies not only in blooming, but also in scattering. And the biggest thing, now when someone came to him and said, "Everything is going wrong with me," then he would smile silently and just say softly, "Sometimes what seems wrong is taking you to the right place. Just say yes to it and see." Now he had started entering people's hearts. People started considering him not a guru, but a living example. Because he did not change the world, but he changed his way of looking at the world. And that change changes everything. Time passed. For people, that man was no longer just a colleague, a support, or a guide. He had become the answer to a question. The life to which he said yes every moment was now bringing him to a place where every human being has to reach sometime or the other, the door of death. One evening when everything was normal, he suddenly fell down. The doctor said, "It is a heart case. Anything can happen." Death was standing in front of him. But the funny thing was, there was a smile on that man's face, not panic. The nurse asked, "Are you not scared?" He said in a low voice, "I said yes to everything in my whole life, which people are scared of. So now when death is in front of me, I will bid farewell to it by saying yes." His family members, friends, everyone was crying, but he was consoling everyone. He called everyone one by one and said, "When I said yes for the first time, I did not know that it would change so much. But today, when I am nearing the end, I am sure that living by saying yes is the true life. Those who say no live life in fragments, but those who say yes live every moment with complete existence." He did not turn away from death in fear. Instead, as he always did, he accepted death as well. He embraced it with love. And the surprising thing was, he did not die that night. In fact, the next day, his condition started improving slowly. The doctor said, "Maybe it is a miracle, or maybe it is just the power of the mind." But those who knew. This was the power of yes, a dedication that forced even death to wait for a while. That man had grown old now. There were wrinkles on his face, slight tiredness under the eyes, but the mind was more calm than ever. There was such a smile on his face that it seemed that he had lived by accepting life, not by snatching anything from it. Now that village was loved by everyone, even the children, youth, and the elderly of the city. People would come from far away just to ask one thing: how did you find this peace, this simplicity, this contentment? And he would always say the same thing. Instead of fighting every situation, I said yes to it and hunted it down. I accepted sorrow, embraced fear, because everything is a part of life, and life must be lived to the fullest. One day a young man came, very troubled. He had a lot of struggle in his life, tension in the family, problems with his job, restlessness inside. The man kept listening to him quietly and then said, "Son, you don't need any solution. You just need a yes which gives you a chance to look at yourself. A yes which gives you the courage to face your fear. A yes which teaches you that you are complete even if you are broken." The young man's eyes filled up. He bowed his head and accepted life completely for the first time. After that day, that young man changed, and then many more people came in the same way and kept changing. Slowly, this story of yes became an example. Now everyone was trying to learn how to embrace every challenge, every turn, how to come out of no and make the power of yes the basis of life. And finally, when that man's last moment came, so he said to the people sitting near him, "Don't stop me. Let me go with the same laughter. I am leaving, but my yes will remain here, in every heart that will now choose to live instead of being afraid." And he went away peacefully. Story number 2, the monk who let go of the rope. Sometimes life brings us to such a turn where we are hanging between two worlds, the support of the past above and an unknown future below. Our grip is strong, but faith is weak. At one such turn, there was a monk who had left his home, family, all material desires to understand life, find peace and reach the truth. It was winter season. Cold winds were blowing. He was on a journey of self-discovery like a monk, amidst deep valleys and snow-covered mountains. He had no map, no direction. He was just following a voice rising within him. But that day something changed. The sun had set. There were dark clouds in the sky. The fog and winds were blowing in the valleys as if nature itself was trying to say something. The mountain trail was narrow and slippery with snow. Suddenly his foot slipped and he started falling straight into a deep ravine. But luckily, while falling, he caught hold of an old rope which was tied to a rock. Now he was hanging from that rope, in the dark, in the cold, alone. There was only silence around him. Nothing was visible below. Neither the rock nor the ground, only depth and unknown fear. He was shivering in the cold air, but most of all, his mind was trembling because he did not know what was below him. His fear started telling him that if he let go of the rope, he would die. His faith said, "Let go. Maybe life is waiting for you there below." He hung from that rope the whole night. His hands had become numb, his back was aching, his lips had dried up. But he did not let go of the rope, because his mind was saying, "At least now I am alive. If I let go, maybe nothing will be left." While hanging from the same rope, he called out to God, "O Lord, if you really exist, then save me. Take me out of this darkness." No answer came. He said again, "I had left everything in search of you. Still you left me hanging here?" Only his voice was echoing in the darkness of the night, and the answer was just the silence of the depths. He started asking himself questions. Will I die? Did I do something wrong? Is this my end? Does God really exist? His breathing had become heavy, but at the same time something else was awakening inside him. A thought, a question. Am I holding that rope so tightly because I want to live, or because I am afraid that I will die? This question was opening a new window in the consciousness of that sadhu. He started thinking that perhaps this rope is not just a means, but has become his mental prison. He realized that his fear wasn't keeping him alive, but rather it was stopping him from moving forward. Morning came. The sun came out. Some shepherds were taking their animals nearby. They saw the sadhu hanging from the rope, helped him, and told him in shock, "You were hanging just 2 feet above the ground. Just 2 feet. All night in the cold, in pain, alone, just 2 feet of distance had kept him tied. Now think, did that rope save him, or did it hold him back? Was that darkness his test, or was his fear his real darkness?" That morning, when the sadhu saw just 2 feet of distance from the ground, something had broken inside him, and something had also awakened. The rope which he thought was his last hope of life had become his biggest bondage. He sat there on the ground. His hands were trembling, his eyes were filled with tears. He had no words, no answers. There was just an emptiness in which everything was drowned. I held on to that rope all night when my salvation, my comfort, my liberation was just 2 feet below. A storm was raging inside him. Has this been what I have been doing all my life? Have I always held on to the very things that were actually holding me back? Have I ever asked myself why I was holding on? He sat there all day, staring at that rope. Every time the rope came into his eyes, he would see all the scenes of his life that he had held on to so tightly. Old relationships that were once there, but had now become just habits. Failures that he kept remembering over and over again. Worries about the future that were suffocating his present. Identities that he pretended to be someone else every day for fear of losing. We all have some rope in our lives. Sometimes it is our thoughts, sometimes our relationships, sometimes our fears. We assume that if we let go, we will fall. But the truth is that we are hanging from that same rope, living in pain, stress, and confusion, just because we are not sure if there is ground below or not. That day, the sadhu realized deeply for the first time that holding on is not always strength, and letting go is not always defeat. He decided that now he would identify all the ropes within himself and let go one by one. But the question was how? How to let go of those things that have become our identity over the years. How to break those illusions, which have become the shadow of our self-confidence. This is where the real sadhana of the sadhu begins. To find the inner ropes, to identify them, and then to let them go with love, with peace. The sadhu had come down the mountain that day, but something else had risen inside him. An intense restlessness, an uneasy awareness, as if he could no longer escape his own shadow. That rope had not just saved him, it had broken him, and then fixed him again, by itself. Now I want to know, he told himself. I want to see all the ropes I am tied to. And first I will face the strongest rope of all, the one that gives birth to every other rope, fear. Fear is an emotion deeply rooted in every human being. It is not just the fear of death. It is the fear of rejection, of being alone, of losing, of failing, or most of all, of change. The sadhu closed his eyes and began to descend within. Every time he tried to hold on to something, an idea, a dream, a relationship, he found that it was rooted in fear. Fear that, if this goes away from my life, what will I be left with? He saw that when he practiced sadhana, he was afraid that he would not be able to become perfect, and people would consider him incomplete. When he met people, he was afraid that they might mistake his simplicity for weakness. Even when he smiled, there was a fear inside. Is this smile also a mask? He learned that fear does not make any sound. It silently, slowly makes its home inside, and then makes us prisoners in our own eyes. But he understood one thing, that fighting with fear is like tying another rope. To see fear, to know it, and just sit with it is the first step to leaving it. He started a practice. While meditating every morning, he would simply watch the fear rising within him, without judgment, without interrupting, like a guard just watches with a lamp in the darkness. Who is this who is hiding? Slowly, something amazing started happening. His fear no longer started running away, it started coming forward. Sometimes in the form of an old experience, sometimes in an imagination, sometimes in the form of a thought. And the sadhu would just watch and say, I know you are here, and yet I will not run away from you. This is what it means to let go of the rope of fear. No shouting, no biting, just slowly loosening your grip. The sadhu had now started recognizing his fear. He knew that the first door to peace opens only by understanding fear. But as soon as he crossed this door, he stood at another door. This time that door was tied not by anyone else, but by him himself, with his own hands, with the rope of expectations. Every human being has some expectations from someone or the other, of love, respect, understanding. But when these expectations are not fulfilled, the heart starts breaking. The sadhu asked himself, did I keep all the restlessness in my life only because people did not live up to my expectations? Did I keep waiting for someone's smile, someone's appreciation, someone's acceptance, and considered this waiting as life? He sat inside the cave, quiet, but there was a commotion going on inside. He remembered when he was young, he had asked a question to his guru. Guruji, you don't want anything from us. Neither expect service, nor respect? The guru had smiled and had just said, the day I want something from you, that day I will no longer be your guru. I will again become a businessman. The sadhu had understood at that very moment, but today he was feeling that lesson from within. Expectation was another rope, and this rope binds very silently. Sometimes because someone did not answer, sometimes because of someone's anger, sometimes because of the praise received from someone, and sometimes because of not hearing anything from someone. But this rope becomes even more dangerous when we tie expectations from ourselves. I should have become successful by now. Why haven't I calmed down by now? I should have been better than others. All these knots of expectations get entangled within us, and they keep binding us. Sadhu was now slowly starting to recognize these knots. he started an experiment. Every time he expected something from someone, he would ask himself, if this is not fulfilled, can I still remain calm? Initially, it was difficult, but slowly he found that giving up expectations is not defeat. Rather, it is the courage in which we choose our freedom. Giving up expectations does not mean that we run away from relationships. Rather, it means that we learn to accept relationships unconditionally. Just like flowers bloom, without expecting that someone will see or appreciate them. Many days had passed. Sadhu was now slowly starting to go within. He had understood the ropes of fear and expectation, but there was a third rope, which was the strongest, which was the most difficult to break, the rope of self-respect. This was the rope with which Sadhu had tied himself, with his name, with his identity, with the pride of his penance and sacrifice. I am a sannyasi. I have renounced the world. I am going to live in silence. I have renounced a lot. Slowly, all this became his identity. But was this his reality? Or was it just a pretense, an illusion? He thought, am I really free? Or has my image, my identity become my new bondage? One day, a farmer was passing through a mountain path. He saw the sadhu and said with folded hands, "You are great. It is not possible for us to live a life like yours. You are blessed." The sadhu smiled, but something stirred inside him. He felt the happiness that one feels when one is honored. But immediately he asked himself, why did I feel good hearing this? Am I hungry for these words? If this farmer had said, "You are a hypocrite," would I still remain calm? This was the real test. Does my peace depend on external respect and insult? The rope of self-respect is very thin. Sometimes it is made of the praise of others, sometimes of our own achievements, sometimes of our own image, which we have built over the years. But this rope also binds. Because when we bind ourselves in an image, we start weighing every word, every thought, every experience with that image. The sadhu slowly started looking at this third rope. He asked himself a question every day. If I am not what people think, if I am not what I think, then what am I? In the beginning, he got scared, but slowly a new light started awakening within him. I am nothing, and this is the greatest freedom. Now that Sadhu was slowly shedding all those layers which were binding him, and now he was moving towards the next chapter of his life, where after the ropes comes emptiness, the emptiness that we fear. But in reality, that is where life begins. Now the sadhu had let go of three ropes: fear, expectation, and self-respect. As soon as these ropes were broken, he began to feel a strange peace. The mind was lighter than before, there were fewer thoughts than before, and there was an emptiness within. But this was the next test. Emptiness is a state where there is nothing left to hold on to, where there is no goal, no name, no identity, no relationship left. Earlier, when there were ropes, there was a purpose to break them. Now there was no purpose. Now there was only emptiness. The sadhu asked himself, is this salvation, or is this another illusion? He would sit for hours, sometimes with eyes closed, sometimes open. He would not speak to anyone, nor ask for anything. People would come and go, but now he would neither connect with anyone's presence, nor with anyone's absence. But gradually this emptiness began to scare him. Sometimes he used to think, have I lost myself? Have I become nothing? Do I have no value anymore? One day he was sitting on the top of a mountain. The sun was nowhere to be seen in the sky, covered with clouds. Everything was hazy, quiet, and still. There was something similar inside him, a deep mist. No thoughts, no feelings. And then a thought emerged from within him. This emptiness is also a rope, which I am holding, because I feel, now I am empty, and this has become my identity. We all often cling to something or the other. If nothing happens, then we hold on to nothingness. I am nothing. This too can become an identity, and this identity starts binding us again. Now the sadhu started understanding this. Moksha is not reaching a particular state, but being totally free from every state, even from the idea of liberation. And here began the journey to identify the last rope, the rope that is not visible, but holds us the deepest, the rope of the eye. The sadhu had given up everything by now. Fear, expectation, self-esteem, and even the feeling of emptiness. But one thing was still left. The eye, the invisible knot, which we recognize last. One evening when he was sitting in meditation, he noticed that there were no clear thoughts anymore, no images. But still there was someone who was watching all this. Who is watching? This was the question that arose within him. Many days passed. The sadhu neither met anyone nor spoke a word. He was no longer attached to any idea, any purpose, any identity. But every moment, a subtle I still sat deep within his consciousness. The eye that felt he had given up everything. The eye that was still watching itself. The ultimate spectator. Then one night, amidst the moonlit hills, the sadhu was lost in a meditative state, and at that moment something broke within. No words, no thoughts, no movements, as if the ultimate door within had opened, and he was watching, without any observer. That moment was not an experience. It was just silence, an experience of existence, where even the I was no longer there. He was neither a sadhu, nor a sage, nor a liberated. He was nothing. And then in that emptiness, a most beautiful experience was born. He became everything. When I am no more, only then everything is revealed. Only when we erase ourselves, we can see life fully. He realized that we are not bound by life. We are only bound by our thoughts. And when this last knot is untied, nothing remains inside. No questions, no answers. There is only a silence, a belongingness, a truth. That night, when he let go of the rope and allowed himself to fall into the darkness, everything became quiet. No noise, no fear, no hope, just peace. Many moments passed. He felt that now there was nothing left. Now he just had to fall, but he was surprised. There was no sound of falling, no pain of colliding. He slowly opened his eyes. He looked around. There was still dense darkness, but now it did not seem scary. It felt like freedom, as if everything had become clear inside him. Now ask yourself, what is the rope in your life that you are holding on to? What is that fear that is not allowing you to live your life to the fullest? Is it possible that what you think is a fall is actually the safest ground of your life? Are you also ready to let go of that rope? Let me tell you in the comments. Story number 3, the crystal cup. Long ago, a Zen master named Master Rikuzen lived in a small village in Japan. His monastery was in the middle of a dense bamboo forest, where the cool morning breeze, the chirping of birds, and the slow gurgling sound of water always filled the atmosphere with peace. Every corner of the monastery was filled with the echoes of simplicity and meditation. Master Rikuzen's life was very simple. He had a small hut, which had a mat, a broom, and a bowl. He spent day and night meditating, giving teachings and interacting with his followers. He did not have wealth, but there was a peace on his face that attracted everyone. One day, a wealthy merchant of the village decided to meet Master Rikuzen. The merchant brought all his wealth, expensive clothes, and a unique thing, a crystal cup. This cup was transparent, shiny, and priceless, which he had bought from somewhere by spending thousands of rupees. The merchant presented this cup to the master and said, "Master, this crystal cup is for your simplicity and austerity. This cup shows that real peace and beauty can also be found in external things." The master looked at the cup. Everyone would have been fascinated by seeing its shine and fragility. But the master took the cup in his hand and carefully kept it aside. He smiled and said, "Thank you. This is a very precious gift. But I think that peace comes from within, not from any object. So I cannot seek it. It would be better if you keep it with yourself." The merchant did not even think of getting rid of the cup, considering it so precious. The cup became the most precious part of his possessions. He touched it every day, saw himself in its glow, and treasured it as a gift. But as time passed, the merchant realized that the cup was also bringing a strange uneasiness into his life. The cup was fragile. It could break. It could get dirty. He was always afraid that the cup would get damaged or someone would steal it. The cup was the reason for his happiness, but it also became the center of his anxiety and fear. One day the merchant said to Master Rikuzen, "Master, this crystal cup is very precious to me, but at the same time it does not let me relax. I am tired of handling it. Please tell me something. How can I overcome my fear and anxiety with this cup?" The master listened to him calmly and said with a smile, "Come to the monastery garden tomorrow morning. I will tell you a story." With the first sunlight of the morning, the merchant reached the monastery garden. There Master Rikuzen was sitting in meditation, with the same deep peace and smile on his face that could be seen every time. The merchant slowly approached the master and said, "Master, I have come to hear your opinion. Please tell me, how can I get rid of my fear and anxiety with that crystal cup?" The master opened his eyes, felt the merchant's anxiety and said, "Look, the shine and fragility of that cup frightens you. But have you ever wondered why that cup seems so precious?" The merchant thought for a while and said, "Maybe because it is rare, and it is important for me to protect it from breaking." The master slowly said, "Okay, but do you remember when you got this cup? What did you think in your mind?" The merchant said, "I thought this cup would make me special, make my life better, and increase my value in the eyes of others." The master smiled and said, "This is the trap most people fall into, attaching your identity and happiness to external things. Your fear is because you have attached your peace to that cup." The merchant asked, "So what should I do? Should I give up the cup?" The master pointed to a big tree in the garden and said, "Come, let me tell you a story." Master Rikuzen made the merchant sit under the tree and said, "Do you know how deep the roots of this tree are?" The merchant nodded. Yes, deep and strong." The master said, "Well, this tree is not harmed by storms because its roots spread so deep into the ground that it remains strong. In the same way, a person's peace also comes from his inner roots, and that is from his thinking, his faith, his soul. When your peace is attached to something external, it is light and unstable, like this crystal cup." The master further said, "Your fear means that your mind is attached to that cup. But real freedom comes when you are able to separate your mind from that thing, when you understand that your happiness is within you, not in any external object." The merchant said softly, "But I like that cup so much that it is difficult to leave it." The master said in a calm voice, "I will give you an exercise. Come again tomorrow morning and talk to me." The next morning, the merchant again reached the monastery garden. Master Rikuzen smiled at him and said, "Have you started looking into the depths of your mind these days, where real peace is hidden?" The merchant nodded and said, "Master, I tried. Whenever I think of that crystal cup, my mind becomes nervous. I am afraid that it might break or get lost." The master said seriously, "It is important to understand that fear occurs when we attach ourselves to an object, situation, or relationship. But remember that this fear is your mind's reaction. The object itself does not cause fear." Then the master told the merchant a special practice. Close your eyes and ask yourself. The master said, "Whenever your mind is worried about that crystal cup, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this object the whole reason for my happiness? Can I live apart from it and still be happy?" The merchant hesitated a little and said, "This does not seem easy." The master laughed and said, "Nothing real in life is easy, but that does not mean that it should not be done." Days passed. The merchant started doing this practice every day. Whenever fear came, he stopped his mind and asked himself, "Does my happiness depend on this cup?" Slowly he realized that even without that cup, he could breathe, he could smile, and he could find peace. But it was still a struggle for him. There was a pang in his heart, like the fear of losing something dear. He realized that there is a very fine line between true love and infatuation. One day the merchant came to the master and said, "Master, is attachment love? Is there fear in love?" The master replied seriously, "Truly, there is no fear in love. Attachment is that which gives birth to fear. When attachment is deep, it puts us in bondage. So understand love. In love, your heart is open, but in attachment, it is closed." The merchant thought, "I am attached to that cup. That is why I am afraid. The master said, recognizing your attachment is the first step to open its chains. The merchant was now feeling some improvement in the practice given by the master, but he was struggling with that part of his heart which was connected to that crystal cup. Every time he remembered the shine of the cup, a kind of confusion and restlessness returned to his mind. One day the merchant asked the master, "Master, I am able to recognize attachment, but how do I remove this attachment? It is so deep that I cannot touch it." The master said in a low voice, "It is important to understand the nature of attachment. Attachment binds us to the object that we think is the source of our happiness or identity. But in reality, attachment is a wall built by our own mind." He continued with a soft smile. "Imagine there is a beautiful crystal cup that you love very much. But when you feel fear, anxiety, and instability about that cup, it shows that your love has turned into attachment. Attachment means that you are afraid of losing that object, and fear binds you." The master asked the merchant, "Do you think that cup is your friend or a tight prison?" The merchant thought and said, "Perhaps it has become my prison." The master said, "You are right. Now you have to choose either to stay in that prison where fear haunts you or to recognize your freedom." The master told the merchant a story. He said, once a monk went into the forest. He saw a tiger, which frightened him. The monk thought, "If I keep being afraid, the tiger will catch me." So he recognized the fear of the tiger and awakened his courage. He saw that fear was a reflection of his mind, not reality. When he understood the fear, he was free from it. The master said, "You have to do the same. Recognize attachment from fear, understand it, and then choose freedom of your mind." Time passed and the merchant slowly began to look inside his mind. Now when he looked at that crystal cup, he was not only fascinated by its shine, but also felt his fear and attachment hidden behind it. One day the merchant came to Master Rikuzen and said, "Master, I understand that my fear and attachment come from my own thoughts. But still, how can I find peace? Can I really be happy without anything?" The master smiled and said, "Come, today I will explain to you the true meaning of peace." The master took an ordinary earthen bowl in his hand and started to swirl it slowly. "Look, this bowl is ordinary, but its true value is realized when it is used. Your crystal cup may look beautiful, but its beauty cannot be the basis of your peace of mind." The master said, "Peace means living in the present with your full presence. When you are completely in the moment, you do not need anything. At that time, your mind is peaceful, whether you have a crystal cup in your hand or not." The merchant asked, "But master, how can I live completely in the present? My mind is always wandering somewhere else." The master took a deep breath and said, "It is a matter of practice. Meditate daily, feel your breath, and live each moment fully. When you go deep into your breath, you realize that happiness is not outside, but inside." The master gave the merchant a simple meditation practice. Spend 5 minutes every morning and evening focusing on your breathing and bringing your mind back to the present whenever it wandered. The merchant practiced it. Slowly he began to feel a strange peace in his mind. His restlessness decreased, and he began to focus on the glow within himself rather than on the glow of the crystal cup. One day when Master Rikuzen was sitting in the garden after meditation, he felt light and calm. But just then the merchant came running, his face filled with worry. He said, "Master, that crystal cup." It fell and broke. Master Rikuzen was calm. He just looked at the merchant. A deep silence fell on the merchant's face for a few moments. His mind stopped. The thing he was cherishing the most was no longer there. The merchant said guiltily, "I am sorry, I accidentally dropped it." But then something shocking happened. The merchant took a deep breath, folded his hands and said, "I am sorry, master. This is not a mistake. This is life. Thank you, because today for the first time I understood what it is to lose truly and also to gain truly." The master nodded and said, "Now you have learned. Now you are free." At that moment, the merchant had a very deep realization. The cup broke, but something inside did not break. Rather, something was joined. The thing he was holding on to was no longer there, and with it all the fear, worry, attachment, all flowed away. He laughed, lightly, as if he had been relieved of some burden. The master said, "When you first brought that cup to me, you said that this cup was the most precious thing in your life. But today, when it is no more, you are still at peace. This is real freedom, when things break and you do not break." That night, the merchant slept for the first time without any fear, greed, or regret. The crystal cup was no longer there, but the peace that had awakened within him was never going to break. Some time had passed since the day when the crystal cup had broken. That moment, when his most precious thing was shattered, had now become a part of his consciousness. But the strange thing was that the one who had broken did not break it. He joined it with himself. Now the merchant, who once used to collect, had learned to sit in silence. The mornings at Master Rikuzen's ashram were as quiet as before. The monks were immersed in renunciation, and the rustling of the leaves seemed to be the voice of the soul. One day the master came to him and said, "Now it is time to return to your city, to your life. But now you are not the same person who came here." The merchant bowed his head silently. He knew that he would find the same streets, the same faces, the same business, the same hustle and bustle of life again. But now the eyes that saw had changed. When he returned to the city, no one asked him any questions. But his gait, his eyes, his smile, everything seemed to be wrapped in a new silence. He again sat at his shop, made transactions. But there was a naturalness in every transaction, as if he touched things, but did not hold them. One day an old friend of his asked, "Where did that cup of yours go? The one that you never let anyone touch?" The businessman smiled. He did not answer. He just offered a cup of tea, a simple earthen cup. The friend was surprised. Is this the man who used to get upset at the slightest scratch? Now he looked at everything the way a seasonal flowers looked at. A moment's beauty, then immersion. No hold, no claim. Slowly people started coming to him, some for business advice, some with life's problems. He would listen to everyone very patiently, and even if he did not say anything to anyone, his silent presence would still give them peace. One day a nervous young businessman came to him with worry in his eyes. The young businessman said, "I have lost my sleep. I have earned a lot, but every day it seems that all this will go away in a jiffy. I am afraid of losing." Now the old merchant remained silent for a few moments. Then he drew a circle in the air with his index finger and said, "Whatever keeps you in fear, even if you have it, is not yours. And what liberates you, even if it is taken away from you, was always yours." The young man understood some things, some he did not, but he left, and there was a faint light in his mind, the lamp of a question that perhaps someday would turn into an answer. The old merchant was no longer the same. He looked at life the way one looks at a flowing river, letting each wave come and then letting it go. Perhaps now he himself had become a living crystal cup, transparent, delicate, but full from within and empty. A gentle breeze was blowing in the silence of the night. The merchant's life was no longer the same, and neither was he the same man. He no longer had that shining crystal cup, but the peace that was within him was never there before. He still sat in the courtyard of his house every morning, meditating, and sometimes drinking tea with a simple earthen cup in his hand. With the tea, his eyes closed, and he flowed with the breath, as if there was no resistance left in the waves of life. That night, as the merchant sat in his room, he noticed an empty shelf. There once was a crystal cup. He got up, placed a lamp there, and lit it. Slowly the flame flickered, steady, calm, as if saying, "Now you are ready. Now you don't need to hold on to anything. Now you can hold everything." After a while, he closed his eyes and was thinking the same thing. There was a time when I was afraid that something might be taken away from me. Story number 4. The Bowl. Far away, there was a village settled among the mountains, where there was neither the speed of time nor the race of any ambition. Life just flowed, like the wind flows, slowly, calmly, but unbroken. In the same village lived an ordinary man. His name was Icon. He was not a saint. He had not read any Vedas, nor was he associated with any monastery. He worked in the fields, chopped wood, and struggled with life alone in all seasons. But there was a noise within him, a restlessness that could not be explained to anyone, as if someone was lost. But no one had ever found him. Aiken had no wealth, no big house. He had only one thing, an old wooden bowl, which he had inherited from his father. This bowl went with him everywhere, in the morning tea, in the lunch, collecting the drops of rain, and sometimes handling the tears. He often looked at it in his hand and wondered, can life be understood through this vessel? Because he felt as if there was some secret hidden in this bowl that forced him to look at himself again and again. Whenever Aiken ate, the bowl would fill up, but his mind would still remain empty. He would often look up at the sky and question, if everything is nearby, why is there such emptiness? Why do I feel like I'm searching for something, but I don't know what? One night he was sitting on his bed, tired, sad, and searching for something. He picked up the bowl lying beside him and peered into it. It was empty, but there was something in that emptiness, a strange depth, a peace which was both scary and attractive. He kept looking at it for a long time, and for the first time, he saw his own reflection in the bowl, a tired face, one that had forgotten how to smile, one that was not afraid of life's questions, but was not familiar with the answers either. At that very moment, something changed. He said to himself, I always tried to fill this bowl. Maybe I needed to empty myself sometime. The next morning, an old monk came to the village, feet covered in dust, shirt drenched in sweat, and in his hand, another bowl. Aiken looked at him, and his eyes were the same as his father's, calm, steady, like he knew everything, and yet held nothing back. The monk smiled. Aiken offered his bowl to him, but the monk folded his hands and said, Your vessel is full, but is your mind full too? Aiken was shocked. That was the question, but also the answer. The monk left, and only that old bowl was left behind, no longer the same, and perhaps not even Aiken. When he looked at the bowl again at night, for the first time he thought of taking something out of it instead of putting something in it. Like his expectations, his sorrows, and all the answers he had been searching for years. Now the bowl was empty, but his heart, for the first time, was starting to fill up a little. Even hours after the monk left, Aiken sat there staring at the bowl as if it were a puzzle. He had used that vessel so many times, to satisfy hunger, to quench thirst, to keep things. But today, for the first time, he realized that this bowl was talking to him. It spoke not in words, but in silence. Aiken could not sleep that night. He kept thinking, I filled it every day. Why did I never leave it empty? The next morning he woke up and took nothing with him. No bag, no luggage. All he took with him was that bowl and a deep restlessness. He crossed the boundaries of the village and started walking on an old mountain trail. The sun was above his head, but he was lost in his own thoughts. On the way, people asked, Where are you going, Aiken? His answer was, I don't know, maybe to find myself, or maybe the peace that I kept searching for in food every day, but never saw within myself. While walking, he reached a waterfall. In the sound of the gurgling water, he heard the noise within himself for the first time. He sat down, filled the bowl with water, and then emptied it. And this is what he did the whole day, filling, watching, emptying, as if he was immersed in some deep practice. Slowly, he started to understand that life is also something like this. We keep filling it with desires, people, thoughts, fears, but we never think that unless we are empty, how will anything new be able to fit in? There on the banks of the waterfall, he asked himself a question. Can I empty myself so much that the universe can fill me? And that question seemed to have penetrated his bones. For the next 7 days, Aiken did just that, walking silently, filling the bowl, and then emptying it. Now he felt every drop that fell, every leaf that moved in the wind, trying to understand its meaning. And each time the bowl was emptied, he became a little more clear within himself. One day when he reached the top of a high mountain, he placed the bowl on the ground and breathed deeply. Now the bowl was not just a piece of wood. Now it had become a symbol, a mirror, a friend, a silent master. Aiken closed his eyes, and for the first time, he listened to life, without words, without reason. A voice echoed within him. Do not be afraid of the empty. What is empty is the deepest. What is empty can contain everything. Aiken was now at another height, not just of the mountains, but also within himself. A week had passed. He had neither spoken to anyone nor asked for anything. He just kept wandering with his bowl, filling, emptying, and descending within himself. But today there was a tiredness in his eyes, which was felt not by the body but by the soul. Walking in a desolate valley, he saw a stone cave. A man was sitting outside the cave. Long white hair, beard like dreadlocks, and eyes that seemed deeper than the ocean. He had no utensils, no stock of clothes, no books. Just a dry tree, and that sadhu sitting under it. Aiken slowly picked up the bowl and went to the sadhu. He said, I want water. The sadhu smiled and pointed to the waterfall, without saying a word. Aiken went to the waterfall, filled the bowl, drank, then came back and sat down next to the sadhu. Both were silent, but something was flowing in the silence that was more than words. After a while, Aiken asked, How are you so peaceful? You have nothing, yet you seem full. How did you learn this? The sadhu looked into his eyes and said, I learned this when I stopped asking. You are still asking for answers, peace, meaning, but the vessel does not get filled until you stop asking. Aiken remained silent for a few moments. Then he asked, Should I not do anything? The sadhu laughed and said, I have to do it, but without any expectation of what will be the result. You fill the bowl every day, thinking it will satisfy your hunger. But have you ever filled it without being hungry? Have you ever filled the bowl just because the water looked pretty? Aiken was stunned. For the first time, he realized that every action he took was connected to some kind of greed. To find solace, to get rid of pain, to understand, to be able to handle it. He wanted something every time. The monk said, One day when you pick up the bowl and don't want to put anything in it, but just look at it, feel it, then you will know that you are now worthy of being filled, because now you are truly empty. Aiken's eyes became moist. He placed the bowl in his lap, and for the first time, he didn't ask for anything in it, just felt its texture, its wooden scent, and its silence. It was getting dark. Without speaking, the sadhu put his hand on Aiken's shoulder, and it was as if all the explanations were washed away in that one touch. That night, Aiken slept there next to the sadhu. For the first time, the bowl was empty, and so was his mind. But the sleep was deep, because now he was not after any answer. Now he was learning to live with that silence, which does not answer, but just walks along. In the morning, when the cold wind hit Aiken's face, today that wind was no ordinary wind. It had a message inside, now go back. Aiken bowed to the sadhu, but the sadhu still sat there quietly, as if it was a part of time, which did not come and will not go either. Aiken picked up his bowl. Now it was empty. But what was inside was the most profound experience ever. He started returning, towards the same village from where he had come. But now the path had changed, meaning the path was the same, but the vision had changed. Where earlier those trees looked like mere wood, now they were bending and saying something. Earlier, the chirping of the birds used to get lost in the background. Now they seemed like some ancient verse. Aiken noticed that everything, every pebble, every cloud, every breath, was teaching him something, which he could now hear. When he reached the village, people were surprised to see him. Is this the same Aiken? How did he become so quiet? Why was there no depth in his eyes before? He met people, but now more than his words, his silent presence was attracting people. An old woman came to him and said, Aiken, you still have the same old bowl. Where has that new knowledge gone? Aiken smiled. He pointed to the bowl. This is the knowledge. People started laughing. Some thought he had gone mad. Some thought he was hiding some deep secret. But some just kept looking into his eyes where there was a silent peace. He now went to the temple and sat there for hours. He never taught anyone, just sat, and people would automatically come running. One day a boy came and asked, Guruji, teach me how to fill the bowl. Aiken called the boy near him, extended the bowl to him and said, "Try to fill it with your mind." The boy was surprised and said, "What mind? But how will you see anything in it?" Aiken smiled and said, "You will not see. But if you can really fill it, then this bowl will show you that it was already full." "Even without you," the boy started thinking. And then a merchant from the village came who had once insulted Aiken. Now he bowed and said, "Please forgive me. I could not understand you." Aiken shook his head and said, "The day you insulted me, the bowl was full. Today you apologized. The bowl is still full. I was just a seeker in between who was learning to see." The whole village now considered Aiken a sadhu. But Aiken knew that he was still a traveler who had learned to walk, not to stop. Days passed in the village. Aiken had now become a silent teacher for everyone. Whoever came to him got an answer, sometimes in words, sometimes just in silence. But one day something happened which shook all of Aiken's sadhana. A stranger merchant had come to the village. He had heard that there is a sadhu here who has a magical bowl. People change on seeing it, which tells the future, which fulfills wishes. He went straight to the temple and said, "I want that vessel. I will give 100 gold coins in exchange for it." Aiken smiled and said, "This vessel is not a miracle. It is just a means to see, to peep inside oneself." But the merchant did not agree. He got excited and said, "So this is a show. People consider you a saint, and you have made a vessel great?" Aiken remained silent. A crowd began to gather. The merchant snatched the bowl from Aiken's hand in anger and threw it forcefully on the ground. The bowl broke, its pieces scattered all around, and an echo spread, both inside and outside. People shouted, "Oh no! That vessel broke!" Aiken just kept watching. His eyes were fixed on the bowl, but there was no anger in them, no sadness, no rage, just silence. After a few moments, he bent down and picked up the remaining pieces, placed them in his lap, and took a deep breath. He said, "This vessel too was ultimately clay, in which I saw myself. Now it has returned to the ground again after becoming clay, and I now can see myself even without it." People were stunned. The merchant laughed and said, "What will you do now, sadhu? Now your miracle is over?" Aiken went towards him, gently held his hands and said, "Thank you. You taught me what I could not learn in years of meditation. The vessel is not broken now, it is liberated. Now see, the truth will begin." People's eyes filled with tears. At that very moment, Aiken went to the back of the temple, sat in a new place, without the pot. But people started coming there again, because now they had understood that sadhana is not in any object, but in that vision which sees perfection even in the brokenness of everything. Many days had passed since the pot broke. Now Aiken used to sit in the back of the temple, under an old tree, where there was no idol, no walls, only sky and silence. People still came. Some would ask questions, some would just sit like that for peace of mind. But Aiken did not speak much, because now he knew that silence teaches more than words. But somewhere inside Aiken, there still remained a slight echo of emptiness. His pot was no longer there. One night, when everyone was sleeping, Aiken set out on foot alone, towards the hill where he had met the hermit years ago. Reaching there, he knelt down and looked at the sky, and for the first time he said, "Now when nothing remains, am I still me?" And as these words came out, something inside melted. No tears, no emotions, just a deep, steady melting, as if some old ego, some hidden fear, was slowly giving itself up. And then Aiken saw, at the foot of that hill, a child was sitting and crying. He went to the child said in a trembling voice, "I am lost." Aiken held his hand and said, "You are not alone. We are all lost until we all find ourselves." The child looked at his face and smiled. Tears started flowing from Aiken's eyes. This was no ordinary child. It was his inner child, the innocent part, which was buried with the pot that day, which was slowly getting lost behind humiliation, knowledge, sacrifice, and pride. Aiken hugged him, and for the first time he became completely calm, without symbol, without purpose, without pretense, just a complete existence. Now Icon was not the same as before. He neither preached anything nor asked anyone to do sadhana. He just sat under a tree on a simple mat as if he was not there, but still everything was the same. Now more people came than before, but now people's questions had changed. Earlier people used to ask, "Sanchi, I am sad, what should I do?" But now people would say, "I just want to sit with you for some time." No one wanted answers. Everyone had tasted peace. One day the same merchant returned again. He had changed. He came near the temple and sat on the ground. The merchant looked at Icon and said, "Please forgive me." Icon smiled and looked into his eyes and said, "Did you break anything? The pot you broke was made of clay, but what did not break was silence. And your coming today shows that you have also heard that silence." The merchant started crying. He opened his bag and took out all the broken pieces of the pot from it. He had kept them safe for years. Icon took them in his hand and said, "Can you join these pieces?" The merchant said, "I have heard that there is an art in Japan, kintsugi, where broken pots are joined with gold." Icon's eyes sparkled, so put it together. But this time not just with gold, but with understanding, with humility, and with the silence that breathed between these pieces. A few weeks later, from the same old pot, a new pot was prepared, but now it did not have cracks, but stories. Every crack glittered like gold. Every joint had a story. People started coming to see it, but Icon did not keep it in the middle of the temple. He kept it near a simple stove in the village, where children played, and the elderly drank tea. Someone asked, "Why is such a sacred pot kept here?" Icon said, "Now this pot is not just for seeing, it is for living." Now the village was changing. There was peace in people's conversations, understanding in quarrels, and communication in silence. The temple was now built in the hearts of the people. And that pot, it was not just made of clay, it had become a mirror in which everyone could now see themselves. Time passed. The village had changed. The pot was no longer a symbol of anything, but had become an experience. People would tell their children, "Look, the gold lines added to this pot are the wounds we have accepted." Icon was rarely seen now. He did not look like a sadhu, just an old man who had nothing left to say because he had lived everything. One morning in the soft sunlight, Icon walked toward the temple for the last time. He looked at the pot. It was lightly dusted. There were children's handprints. Someone had also placed flowers in it. He picked it up, looked at it carefully, and then placing it on the ground, folded his hands. And then he quietly went behind the temple, where once stood the tree under which he had heard silence for the first time. He sat there, closed his eyes. His breathing became calm, and then slowly he too merged into silence. People searched for him. There was no news of him for many days. Then behind the temple, the mat on which Icon used to sit was found. An old bowl was kept on it. It contained some water, a flower, and a letter in which it was written, "That which breaks does not shatter if we touch it with love. The silence does not disappear, it resonates within. I am no more, but if you too ever break, then look at yourself in these pieces. You also have a bowl. Just learn to put it together again with love." That letter now became the most sacred object in the temple. When people were very sad or started giving up in life, they would read that letter, and then they felt that Icon had not gone anywhere. He was within them, in every silence, in every broken thing, in every moment where someone dares to fill his wounds with gold. The bowl was no longer a story. It had become a meditation, a direction, a light. And Zen taught once again that to understand life, we do not have to get something, but have to give up something. So this was the last story of our video today. I hope you all liked it. If you liked it, then do not forget to like it and tell us by commenting which story you liked the most. If you like such videos, then tell us by commenting, then we will again start giving you life lessons through such stories. So stay tuned with us by subscribing to ATD Tales channel. See you in another new video. Until then, take care of yourself, stay motivated. Thank you.